Hey guys, Tony Maritato here. So in a minute, Steve Gluck from HelloNote is going to join me. Now, I've interviewed Steve before. I know Steve personally. He's an amazing guy. He is one of the founders, co-founders of HelloNote, the EMR system. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is not just the new version of HelloNote that's been launched, but we're going to talk about how artificial intelligence is coming to the EMR systems, how it's going to change or hopefully reshape what we do as clinicians. You know, if you follow any of my content, you know that my objective is always to improve the patient care experience however I can. And if artificial intelligence can help support me in the documentation of my treatment note, then you better believe that I'm going to take advantage of that, because if that lets me spend more time face to face with my patient instead of face to computer, I am going to do it. So let's get Steve on here. Let's see what's new with HelloNote, and let's see what kind of innovations are coming down the road. All right, guys. So I've got Steve on with me. Steve, thanks so much for joining me today. I know that I've interviewed you before. I already told everybody you and I go back. We've done events together. But for the audience that's just joining, that doesn't know you, doesn't know about HelloNote, just give me a little background. So tell me who you are. Tell me about your OT background and how you got into being a co-founder for HelloNote.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony, for the little introduction. So I'll be happy to explain what we do, who I am. My name is Steve Gluck. I am the CEO of HelloNote, which is an EMR inspired by my own pain points when I was straight out of school and I had issues with documentation, more along the lines of like timeliness, just making sure that I complete my documentation so I can get paid for it. So we started with HelloNote around 2013. And from there, we just developed documentation, and it kind of spiraled into a full-fledged all-in-one EMR that we have today, which has scheduling, billing, appointment reminders, CRM components, of course, templates for documentation, and it's for OT, PT, and speech therapist. So yeah, it's a full all-in-one system right now, which is awesome. We're getting great feedback, and we really try to focus on our users and community. So every single feature of HelloNote today was inspired by feedback that we got from a real clinic. And that's our passion. That's what we believe in. We believe that somebody's feedback from New York, Florida, Texas, Tennessee, wherever you are, will still be a great feedback for somebody else in a completely different state or clinic. So we have a lot of cool tools on HelloNote now that we didn't even come up with ourselves, and we thank our users for that. So we consider all of our clients that use HelloNote a partner, because we truly listen to feedback, positive, negative, and that's why we're here today.
That's awesome. And I know you and Kara and Rick, you guys had a big event, Mike Chua, of course, in New York
Yep.
recently. You announced the launch of HelloNote 2.0. So tell me a little bit about that. What's different? I had demoed the original HelloNote years ago. I loved it. But what are you guys doing today? What makes 2.0 different?
Great question. So we're kind of in that 10-year mark with HelloNote 1.0. So technology moves really quick. And you could tell with even ChatGPT making a big dominance this year, things started to change in every single industry. I'm talking about aside from therapy, just almost every industry is now trying to adapt to the evolution of AI and things like that. But just in general, technology is always moving quick. So when we built HelloNote 1.0, it was more again for like I'm a therapist that had issues with documentation. I had a physical therapist working with me, and he also had problems with documentation. So HelloNote 1.0 was built on just documentation, and then we just kept building up until we got to the point where we're all in one. So we kind of handled the whole back end of any practice's inner workings with billing, documentation, scheduling, and reports and all of that. So what happens with technology is that there's always a limit to how much you can build on top of infrastructure. So as we scaled, as we grew with more users, and we're grateful with all of our clients, all of our users to where we are today, we need to take care of our users, right? So we can't just keep building features on top of our old infrastructure, because remember, we built HelloNote 1.0. Like I built the first version of HelloNote like it was like a desktop application, but still, it was in my basement. I never intended it to get to this point, right? So in order to adapt and build new features, new integrations, we had to change our infrastructure. It wasn't easy. It's still not easy, but we have to do it because we're taking care of our current clients and we're also looking for the future as well. We want to make sure that we're inviting to all size practices, regardless if you're a solo practitioner with 10 claims a week or you're a huge facility with thousands of claims per week, or whatever the case is, whatever size you are, we want to make sure that we welcome you with open arms because we are looking for more partners to be HelloNote users as opposed to just looking at you as a dollar sign as a client. So that's why 2.0 kind of began about almost 3 years ago, where we started to say, okay, we're growing, we have more features we want to add. Well, if we keep adding to our current infrastructure, things are going to start slowing down. We're not going to be able to adapt quickly. So we completely built new infrastructure. Our development team is amazing. They really, put in so much work, so much effort, new ideas to get us to where we are today, where we're now starting to roll out 2.0. So 2.0 will be much faster, much more integrated with other systems. So like, for example, CRMs, right? If you want to integrate with a CRM, we'll have that feature. So there's going to be, even we're getting like invoicing platforms that want to integrate with us. On the old HelloNote, we weren't able to do it. On the new HelloNote, we are.
When
And
when
also,
you say an invoicing platform, what does that mean?
so like bookkeeping, like kind of like
Yeah,
a QuickBooks, like there's different softwares on that. So HelloNote is not an invoicing platform. We don't do payroll, at least not yet.
sure.
But we want to still integrate because we want to make sure our clients have a seamless like transaction between HelloNote flow and, for example, their payroll, right? Again, our goal is to have an all-in-one system. So we don't want you to have to start paying for multiple softwares or paying somebody to do mapping on the back end to transfer data manually. Our whole goal, our whole idea is to continue on that all-in-one solution. So even if we're not an expert in, let's say, QuickBooks, we'll integrate with QuickBooks or Salesforce, whatever you use, and we'll have an open API to send data back and forth in a HIPAA compliant and secure manner. So that's our whole idea. We want to make sure that 2.0 is adaptive to all new platforms, regardless if it's EMR or not. And that includes artificial intelligence, which is making a big, shaking up the industry right now a lot.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about AI. I
Yep.
upgraded my Chat GPT account to a paid account months ago. Actually, it was April
Yep.
of 2023.
Yep.
I always share this story, like prior to the release of Chat GPT 4, I had
Mhm.
paid $7,000. I had 100,000 words of
Wow.
content written for a website. And now I can generate that same volume of better quality work for a fraction of the
Mhm.
cost. I
100%.
still don't exactly see how AI is coming into the EMR world, but what do you see either going on now or on the horizon? Because I have some ideas, but you're the one with your finger on the pulse. So where is AI taking us?
Awesome. Yeah, great question, great topic. I love I mean, I also have a background in computer science, so anything with automation and data, I love. So let's take it a step back a little bit. So AI was kind of in development for years and years and years, right? It just didn't make this big presence in the consumer world until, what was it, like 5 months ago or so, where ChatGPT became publicly available. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact date, but somewhere along those lines. So, and all of a sudden, people started using it and saying, "Wow, this is amazing!" This, like, they couldn't believe that it's a actual bot. They thought it's like something a human had to write. So, which is dangerous as well, because now we have a lot of users of AI trying to replace their workload with AI, right? So, for example, like in your case, like blogs, right? You can have Chat GPT write a full blog article for you, and to the untrained eye or reader, it's going to look like somebody wrote it. But if somebody is reading it and they kind of read blogs and they can interpret different wording, you can tell that a bot wrote it.
Sure.
But remember, we're still in the initial phases of AI. So this isn't, AI is going to change a lot over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where it's going to make a big impact in so many industries. And then we are in the EMR space, right? We're in the patient treatment space. So nothing's ever going to replace, I mean, I hope not, a therapist where treating a patient, that one-on-one interaction. It's why we became therapists in the first place. It's why patients get that care from a therapist that actually understands their goals from an ethical perspective, empathetic perspective, knowing all the aspects of the body to determine the best possible outcome and solution to treat that patient. But AI is really smart. So even though right now it might not be a perfect solution, it's still available. It's still a tool available to therapists to help with, for example, documentation, right? I speak to a lot of therapists, and these are really high level therapists that really know what they're doing, but sometimes we kind of have conversations on they can't formulate what happened in the session and the treatment that they want in a note, right? It just, whether it's just mind block or something like that, or they just can't formulate it. At the end of the day, they still need to finish the documentation. They can't just write that. I can't think of my, what I did, right? So this is where AI is huge. So you can literally type in something like, this is what I did with the patient, and have it formulate a narrative for you. So that's one aspect of how AI, I'm already seeing that, and we did different type of examples on that, where it formulates a great narrative based on like a soap note of what happened in the session. And it's smart. It can identify diagnosis codes and things like that, like treatments. So it is awesome on that perspective. Of course, a therapist can't or shouldn't, I should say, shouldn't just have ChatGPT do your whole note, right? Like you don't say, I just saw this patient with gait instability, I spend this much time, and then just copy and paste. So we don't want that, right? We want to use AI for the good. And as therapists, we spend a lot of time with patient care, but we want to go home to our families, right? We want to have leisure time. We have other things we want to do, and we don't want to spend hours on documentation. So with HelloNote, we already have templates in place, goal banks, autocomplete phrases that you can put into the system and use that. But AI will take it to the next level as well. And we are seeing a positive trend on that. So if you couldn't formulate something or you want ideas for a treatment, then you can use AI for that. So it will give you ideas. But again, as a therapist, nothing's going to replace your mind and compliance and all that goes within it to say, okay, the AI bot is going to document for me. So it's a fine line, and I do feel like you can't control it as well. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, Tony. Like if this is available in an EMR where you could just click a button and it'll generate a whole soap note for you, for example, based on diagnosis codes and what treatments, what do you think therapists are going to do? Or do you think they're just going to take it for granted? Or do you think they're actually going to read through it and modify a few things or all?
So my bias, I think therapists are
Yeah.
generally going to reject and
Yeah.
push it away as long as they possibly can. But I think
Mm.
that's because they're still thinking on the most basic superficial level. The therapists I
Yep.
hear, the conversations I see, they're talking about like, how do I get ChatGPT to write me a soap note to document what I did? That stuff, it's not going to work like that. What I do, and where I think the real magic happens, is so I can take documentation from Medicare. I can take CMS Chapter 15, the Medicare Benefit Policy Manual. I can literally import the entire section of 220, 230. I can have ChatGPT read and process the information. I can take LCD articles. I can take other pieces of content from third-party payers specific to the payer, train the chat, and then I can have the chat review my documentation. I can have the chat be the auditor that takes a look at my documentation to determine what am I missing, what could I improve, how can I clean up my wording to make it more concise, to make it more clear. I do think and I struggle with this as a therapist. For those of you guys who maybe don't know me, I still treat patients in my clinic. I own a physical therapy clinic here in Ohio. I do think that we could utilize AI in its current structure right now I could import multiple, say, post-surgical protocols, and then using that information, training the chat on what I want it to know. I can then use that to create kind of a predictive model of, okay, what are going to be some of the main functional deficits that I'm going to look for? How can I generate treatments to address those functional deficits? How can I improve the wording, again, to make it easier to understand and kind of give me the outline? I think there's a lot that we can use cut and paste in our documentation, which allows us then to save the time for the truly unique narrative. I'm never going to cut and paste a patient's past medical history. I'm never going to cut and paste a patient's, current socioeconomic status and things like that. But once I've determined the diagnosis, once I've generally determined the treatment plan, what I want to do, there's a lot I can cut and paste from functional outcome measures that are out there, from other treatment approaches that are out there, that rather than having to create unique content for everything. And what's beautiful is once I, the therapist, have used my clinical knowledge to create the plan of care, now I can use ChatGPT and other tools to kind of improve the wording throughout, so that, like you said, on those days where I'm like 6 notes behind and I don't want to think about more things to say, I can use it as an assistant to me. The best saying I've heard is AI is not going to replace people. AI is going to replace people who don't use AI. So I just love it. I think it's great. What else did you ask me?
No, that's perfect, and I love that you use the word assistant, right? And that's where there's that fine line. Like, we don't want therapists to kind of just say, "Oh, I have this tool available in my arsenal. I'm just gonna just do notes based on that and cut and paste." So that's where we're gonna be careful, and we're not going to develop something that will allow for that. Well, we're still in the development phase of it, but we're trying to structure what's best. So I love the fact that you use assistant. So I would say it's more of like a supplement to the therapist. So you are writing the note, but the chat GPT, for example, is being there and just reviewing what you wrote, and either can give you just formulate it a little bit better or give you different ideas, things like that. So where we're starting with in HelloNote for AI is not necessarily here, just type in a little description and it's going to throw the wording for you. We're going to use it more on like the back end scanning. So for example, when you start a new note, HelloNote right now, it shows you your prior note. It kind of pre-fills that just so you have a baseline of what happened on the last note. So it's up to the therapist, of course, to modify whatever they need to modify. So what we're going to be doing is taking that data and then giving a predictive analysis and showing you how close your current note is to your last note. So this is just like feedback, in your face feedback to the therapist. And it's going to highlight it in red, for example, if it's too close to the prior note. So before finalizing it, you have a chance to review it. Because at the end of the day, especially those that bill insurances, right? You don't want to get hit with an audit and then they're going to look at your past 6 notes, 5 notes, whatever it is, even 1 note, and it's the same thing. And I have seen that. I have seen therapists not even change subjective complaints over the course of like 5 notes, you know? So that's dangerous, right? You don't want somebody to pull your chart and say, well, the patient said the exact same thing for 5 sessions or whatever the case is. So we're going to be using predictive analysis and kind of retro feedback on making sure that their documentation is still defensible and compliant based on the insurance guidelines. So that's another area of AI that we're going to be using that has nothing to do with just speeding up documentation time, but it's more feedback for you. And we are working on community integration, which means we're going to be taking data points from different clinics based on similar diagnosis codes. And if you opt in, then we'll be able to take that data, aggregate it, and then we can also give kind of ideas on plan of care or whatever the like treatment is, maybe different treatment ideas, things like that. So our goal is also to build more on the community and make sure that therapists are kind of, sharing their data, of course, without patient information. That goes without saying. So it's going to skip all that. But you might want to see what other therapists with similar complications for their patients are doing for treatment and what's working for them or not.
And that's the thing that you and I have discussed over the years, is the challenge that we're all kind of sequestered into this little box. Nobody knows what anybody else is doing.
Mhm.
I think honestly, like as much as we need to value and protect patient privacy, I think it also comes at a great cost. Because if I
Mm.
can't see what you're doing and you can't see what I'm doing and we can't compare notes and we can't look at these things, we
Mhm.
really slow down progress. I think I would learn so much more if I was able to see what other clinicians are doing.
Yep, exactly.
Um, but something you brought up talking about privacy that I think is so interesting is I could also see a world where AI will help us to protect that privacy. AI will be able to run a scan to say,
Yep.
hey, chat, where are the vulnerabilities in my system? Like all of a sudden you realize, oh, I've got this integration that's not secure. It could potentially be a vulnerability. And
Mhm.
I think that AI, as much as anything else, would help with regulations, would help with compliance, would help with privacy, and so many other things. But before we run out of time, so give me kind of a rundown. When you say an all-in-one solution for HelloNote, I know you guys have a patient portal, which I think is huge because I think it gives a lot of opportunity for efficiencies, but patient portal, scheduling, like what are some of the features that are included with HelloNote?
Yeah, great question. We actually at our launch party a couple weeks ago, we actually showcased our new patient kiosk as well. So which is awesome because this essentially can sit on a front desk and it does all the intake for you. So a patient can check in, they can input, they can sign consent forms, intake forms, pay their bills, and it's actually going to give them a prompt of how much they owe. So if they have a copayment, it's going to tell you have a copayment. They can pay it right on the spot. They can, of course, also speak. They can request to speak to like a supervisor or something like that if needed. Also, we're going to be working with. We're developing this like questionnaire review system where we're going to be asking the patient, well, how was treatment today? Do you feel like this? Do you feel like that? And so on. And then we're going to aggregate that data and also using AI, it's going to show a predictive analysis of, for example, this patient, maybe they responded better to treatment every Tuesday instead of every Friday, and so on, and then compare that with similar diagnoses to see how the time of the day of treatment affects their progress and prognosis, things like that. So that's part of the patient kiosk. I'm really excited about that, especially it's going to knock out so much work up front desk, right? So it could just sit there and act as a front desk, including any special like messages that you want to customize for your patient and things like that.
That's
So yeah,
awesome. Go ahead.
yeah, we're looking. No, thank you. We're looking forward to releasing that as well. Just a few, and that's going to be linked to the patient portal as well. So they can log into the portal, and if they need to modify their insurance information, they can do that from the portal without having to go into the clinic. Also, speaking of AI and integrations, so when you have a patient, for example, let's say a patient calls you, right? And you send them to hellonote.com/intake, for example. It's going to give them all the forms they have to fill out for your office. And then as they put in their insurance information, we're actually going to run eligibility for you right there and then. And it's going to upload into the patient chart automatically. So you're not going to have somebody on your staff or team actually go and run that eligibility. So we're trying to automate the whole workflow. And just going back to AI, I know we spoke a lot about documentation, but AI is huge in the presence of backend, right? So like preventing cancellations, doing a lot of billing related things. Like we actually just partnered with a billing company that's big on AI, and it's amazing to see like that portal where it can pretty much give you any detail you want. Like you can see, oh, how much did I get paid from this insurance in the last 2 weeks? Less than $80, something like that. Like, and there's so much graphs and diagrams, and it's all customizable. So I highly recommend if you're looking for more like billing services or something like that. If you don't want to do it yourself, then reach out to us. We'll show you that, and that's all AI based too. So preventing denials, right? We're going to use data, predictive data, and say, well, when I build this session with this many units or whatever it is with this insurance, it's going to pay me this much. And then you can use that data to see, well, maybe I can get higher reimbursement by billing it, with whatever else that's needed. So yeah, predictive data is really valuable. I know different insurances have different guidelines, and AI will be great with that as well. Like we know Medicare guidelines, and like for example, United Healthcare just came out with that time in, time out, right?
Right.
And if you're submitting a note and your therapist didn't put time in, time out, you got denied, that could be analysis and say, well, do not submit this note because your therapist didn't put time in, time out. So there's going to be a lot of things like that in place. And to answer your question, like HelloNote's all in one. So that's what we do. We handle the documentation, compliance, make sure your documentation is defensible, billing. We have our own integrated billing system. So if you want to do billing yourself, it's a few clicks. We give you that feedback, and it's going to be even better with AI because we're going to be able to tell how much you'll get reimbursed before you even get reimbursed, which is great for cash flow because we work with so many clinics and they have no idea how much they're going to make the next month, right? It's almost insane because I know I have other kind of business owners, different industries, and they have their numbers are on point, right? They will know exactly how much they will make in the next 2 months, 3 months, next quarter, and with predictive analysis. But when I speak to clinic owners and I say, can you predict your revenue and how, based on your net revenue, I should say, they have no idea,
Right.
because things change so much in the industry world. So I think with AI, it's going to be a huge help to practice owners because they'll be able to predict that and decide if maybe they don't want to take this insurance anymore because maybe their therapists are getting paid so much to treat for like $30 a session and you're paying them $60 a session, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time. I know I find myself like things are changing so fast, things are advancing so quickly that even when I'm looking at YouTube videos and content to see what's new and what's going on, if there's a video on AI that's a week old, I'm not even going to watch it because things have probably changed in the last
Change, right?
7 days.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, I want to be respectful of your time. This was amazing. What is the best place or where can people find more information about you, about HelloNote, about the business in general?
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate that as well. So you can reach me directly. I'm always open to answer anyone's email. You can message me on Facebook, for example. My name is Steve Gluck. But the best way to contact me is probably email, because I make sure I respond to emails as soon as possible. Sometimes they get backed up, but I'll definitely respond to you. So my email is steve@hellonote.com. If you want to just check us out and do a demo, please go to HelloNote.com. There's a button for schedule demo, or you can kind of browse like some articles, some tutorials we have, so you can see what the system looks like. But as you said, things are changing right now. So we're excited to be in that time, and we're definitely grateful to be in the space of helping practice owners be in charge of their businesses. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we make your process efficient, speed it up, make sure your therapists are happy. So that's what we're all about, and we love feedback. So just reach out to us if you use us or you don't. We'd love to still chat more, even if you want to just chat on AI. I would love that. And we're gonna just always try to make ourselves better and improve based on feedback. So thanks a lot,
Awesome.
Tony. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time as well and the opportunity to hop on. I know it's been a while since we spoke, and hopefully it's not going to be this long till our next chat.
All right, Steve, thanks so much for coming on. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Thanks, Tony. Take care.